It doesn't matter whether you're black or brown or white or whatever the hell color you are. It doesn't matter.
18 past the hour. That was Donald Trump yesterday holding a rally in the South Bronx area of New York City. It's part of his appeal to black and Latino voters. With us now is Democratic New York Congressman Richie Torres, who represents the area where Trump held his rally last night. Congressman, it's always a pleasure to see you. I thank you for your time. You wrote a piece for the New York Daily News earlier this week in which you wrote, quote, "Instead of holding a rally at Crotona Park, Trump owes the Bronx an apology for the lasting damage he has done." What do you mean by that?
Well, Donald Trump's presidency was a catastrophe for the Bronx. His gross mismanagement of the COVID-19 global pandemic left a death toll of more than 7,000 fatalities in the Bronx, which is greater than the death count of 9/11 and Pearl Harbor combined. So Donald Trump has brought preventable death and deep suffering to the people of the Bronx. And as I noted, instead of holding a rally, he should be issuing an apology to the people of the Bronx for the long and lasting damage that he has done, not only to the Bronx, but to our country.
Congressman, you represent an area, it's a very richly diverse area and very compact as far as people living together. What is it that Trump's message, his apparent appeal to Latinos and African Americans, what's the message that the Bronx sends to Donald Trump?
Look, the Bronx is not Trump country. It's the antithesis of Trump country. We in the Bronx are no stranger to Donald Trump. We know that he's fundamentally a fraud. And I predict that the voters of the Bronx are not going to buy the snake oil that Donald Trump is selling. President Biden has delivered for the people of the Bronx. I'll give you one example. He capped the price of insulin at $35 a month, which is a game changer and a lifesaver for the people of the Bronx, which has among the highest rates of diabetes in the country. President Biden early on expanded the child tax credit, which cut child poverty by 50% in the South Bronx and throughout the country. By contrast, Donald Trump Republicans are intent on imposing the steepest cuts to SNAP, to nutritional assistance, in nearly 30 years. That's not an act of fiscal responsibility. That's an act of cruelty against the people of the South Bronx, which is one of the poorest areas in the country.
Yeah. Congressman, another issue I've been looking forward to speaking to you about, you continue to raise your voice in support of the Jewish population, the Jewish people, and to Israel. What's your reaction to the International Court of Justice's order on Israel to halt its offensive in Rafah immediately?
Well, I have concerns about the politicization of the international justice system. I'm not familiar with the latest order from the ICC, but I do share the view that the protection of civilian life should be a priority. Everyone agrees that Israel should not go into Rafah without first evacuating Palestinian civilians. And my understanding is that there has been a humanitarian evacuation of up to 1 million Palestinians. But we should be crystal clear. The cause of the war was not Israel. The cause of the war is Hamas. And if Hamas remains in power, it will rearm, regroup, and launch even deadlier terror attacks than the atrocities of October 7th. So as long as Hamas remains in power, there will never be security for Israel, and there will never be peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Congressman, why do you think there's been a visible, tangible rise in anti-Semitism in our country?
Look, anti-Semitism is the most ancient form of hatred. At the core of anti-Semitism is a conspiracy theory. It is common for societies to scapegoat the Jewish community for everything that's wrong in a particular society. Scapegoating, fear-mongering, conspiracy theories, these are all symptoms of anti-Semitism and tend to be symptoms of a society that's rotting from within.
Congressman Richie Torres, it's always a pleasure to see you. I thank you very much for being with us today.